Launch coasters, wooden coasters and boomerang coasters. I'm Roller Coaster David, and this is Coasting into Lake Compounce. So I'm here today at Lake Compounce for two reasons. Number one is Boulder Dash behind me, which is an awesome wooden coaster. And number two is the Halloween event, the Haunted Graveyard. Boulder Dash is the park's signature wooden coaster and is ranked very highly amongst enthusiasts, having won Golden Ticket Awards as the best wooden coaster in the world several times. It's a unique terrain coaster that takes you on a journey through the woods, diving into hidden dips and past trees and boulders before you return to the station via a seemingly never-ending sequence of airtime hills. I've visited this park several times over the years, and a night ride on it is something really special. In the dark and at night is the best way to experience Boulder Dash. It really is a phenomenal coaster. It just feels so incredibly quick as you fly through the woods in the darkness. You start off going up this hill and you can't actually see the top when it's in the dark. It just takes you off into the woods. After that there's a drop where it just hurtles at such an insane feeling speed. It's pretty amazing. I remember riding it back in 2016 with a friend of mine from Germany as part of a big coaster trip we did around America, and it was the only time I ever saw her scared on a coaster. Back then, the ending of the ride was a little different, as there was a triple up section that had become really rough and almost felt like the train would explode off the track as it went over it. The following year, however, this section was retracked and reprofiled into a much smoother double up, which makes it a much more re-rideable, if somewhat less scary, coaster. It's definitely one of the best wooden coasters out there, I think. It's just, especially at night, it just feels so incredibly fast. The sensation of speed is just incredible. There's almost two halves to Boulder Dash. The first half is just insane and fast and a little bit on the rough side. Then once you hit the turnaround, it's got this sort of almost slightly outward bank turn. You've just got all these like floaty airtime hills that just like completely change your character. The ride I just had in Boulder Dash was particularly good. I actually got to see shooting stars while riding along, which is pretty sweet. Unfortunately, because it's located mostly in the woods, it's very difficult to get any good video footage of Boulder Dash. One coaster that's a little easier to film is the latest addition to the park, Phobia. Phobia is the newest coaster we've got here. It's a Premier Skyrocket. It's the same as all the other ones that are Premier Skyrockets. I find the restraints a bit uncomfy, but they're still good fun. It's a little disappointing, however, that the first new coaster to be added to the park in nearly 20 years is an off-the-shelf standard model rather than something unique. There's already 8 other nearly identical coasters dotted around the world, but I guess there aren't any particularly nearby to this park, and it does offer something a bit different to everything else that's there, as it's the park's only launch coaster. I'll cover the rest of the park's coasters shortly, but I do really want to talk about the park's incredible Haunted Graveyard Halloween event, as it's something entirely different from the sort of thing you find at other parks. So I just finished the Haunted Graveyard part of the park. It's pretty good. It's most parks tend to have separate haunted house attractions that you go through one by one. This puts them all together in one absolutely ginormous maze. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to go through, and that whole time your adrenaline's just running high with people like hidden, jumping out. It's really quite well done in a lot of bits as well. From the start to the end, you keep moving through different sections that blend into one another, covering nearly every horror trope you can imagine, from vampires and zombies to ancient temples, spiders, hillbillies, witches, and everything else in between. And this maze is stuffed with over 200 scare actors. It's pretty incredible. You find that there's lots of bits where there's maybe things on both sides, so you're going around a corner looking one way, then looking the other, and then something jumps out at you from the other side. There's some nice little animatronic bits and set pieces through it as well. It's really a fun Halloween event to go through. Yeah, it's one of the better mazes that I've done. There's just so much packed into it. There's also a few nice looking flat rides at the park, including a Zamperla disco, a chair swing, and some great fun flying scooters, which go fast enough that you can really get them to whip and snap, especially if there's a bit of a breeze going on, as there was during the time of my visit. Whilst they're not quite as good as the ones at Knoebels, these can still give you a crazy ride if you fly them correctly. Continuing with the rest of the park's coasters, there's also another off-the-shelf model in the form of a boomerang called Zoomerang. It has a nice colour scheme, but there's not really much else to distinguish it from other similar rides. It uses the older style trains with bulky over-the-shoulder restraints, but when compared to some versions of this ride, it's not exceptionally rough, and it's probably one of the most average boomerangs out there. I would however recommend riding the boomerang, particularly at night, as it's the best place to get a good view out over the Haunted Graveyard area. Another thing I'd recommend is wrap up warm when you come here, because it's really rather cold. The cold temperatures didn't deter me from getting some more fantastic night rides in on Boulder Dash though, as well as a few rides on the park's other wooden coaster, Wildcat. Dating back to 1927, this is one of the oldest coasters still operating in America, but fortunately, it's received a bit of love over recent years, getting an extensive retrack and new Millennium Flyer trains which make it a much less rough and much more fun ride. It's still nowhere near as good as Boulder Dash, but it's still recognised as a historic landmark coaster by American coaster enthusiasts. I had a fun time here at Lake Compounce tonight. The Haunted Graveyard's a fantastic time to visit because night rides on Boulder Dash are great and the graveyard itself is really good fun. Anyway, time to head back to my nice warm hotel room as it's very cold here. The next day I'd be heading back south to visit the penultimate park of my trip, Dorney Park. Now I really think this park is quite underrated, so be sure to subscribe and tune in next week to watch that episode. For now though, I've been Rollercoaster David, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video very soon.